Hey guys, Andrew Sluder, pastor of Bible Baptist Church here in Asheville, North Carolina, coming to you with a video on the subject, does asking Jesus in your heart save you? Now let me go ahead and just answer the question and then we'll explain it. The answer is no. Asking Jesus in your heart does not save you. According to the Bible, what saves a man is putting his faith and trust in the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ as the sole payment for his sin. 1 Corinthians 15 verses 3 and 4 clearly defines the gospel as the death, burial, and resurrection, and you've got to believe and receive that in order to go to heaven. So nowhere in the Bible does it ever say that a man has to ask Jesus in his heart to save him. In fact, if you're trusting in the fact that you ask Jesus in your heart to save you, then you, my friend, are not saved. But let me go on further and say, just because at the moment of salvation, let's say when you were, a child, if you got saved when you were a child, and when you prayed and asked the Lord to save you, you said, Jesus, come into my heart, somewhere in that prayer. That doesn't mean you're lost. So just because you may have said those words at the moment of salvation does not negate your salvation. In fact, it's not even about what you said when you got saved. It's about what you believed. And as long as you believed on the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus to save you, then you are saved regardless of what you said. So the idea, though, of Jesus coming into our hearts, that is not an anti-biblical concept. It actually holds a lot of doctrinal, it actually is a doctrinal position. If you look at Galatians chapter 4 and verse number 6, it says, "And because ye are sons, God hath sent forth the Spirit of His Son into your hearts, crying, Abba, Father." But not only that, Ephesians chapter 3 and verse 17 says this, "That Christ may dwell in your hearts by faith, that ye, being rooted and grounded in love, may be able to comprehend with all saints what is the breadth and length and depth and height." So we understand that once a man gets saved, that's the moment when Jesus comes into his heart. There is Bible to show that Jesus does come into the heart. But asking Jesus in your heart is not what saves you. Again, it doesn't mean you're unsaved if you said that, but your faith and trust cannot be in a simple invitation for Christ to come into your life. It has to be in the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus as the payment for your sin. And that's what saves a man. And we need to be very careful about what we are telling people about salvation. We need to be very careful, especially with children, about what we're telling them on how they get saved. I cannot tell you how many times I've heard people explain the gospel to a church, or especially a children's church or a child, and say, if you'll just ask Jesus in your heart, He'll save you. And that child has a misunderstanding of what actually saves them. And a lot of times, unfortunately, those children walk away without a proper knowledge of the gospel, and they're not saved. And there's a lot of adults that way as well. I know of one individual particularly that I was dealing with, and this individual would not be talked, you could not talk to them about salvation because when they were 5 years old, they asked Jesus in their heart, and that's it. That's the only thing they'll say when you ask them about their salvation. So we have to be careful when explaining the gospel. Asking Jesus into your heart does not save you. It's putting your faith and trust in the death, burial, and resurrection that saves you. Again, just to reiterate, just because you said that, if you said those words at the moment of salvation, it doesn't mean you're unsaved. But at the same time, if that's what you're trusting in, then you are unsaved. Let's make sure that we're giving the gospel clearly and make sure we're presenting it in a way that they can understand so that they don't walk away with some kind of misrepresentation of what saves a man in their mind. And I genuinely believe, folks, that if we'll just give people the gospel, they'll understand it. The Holy Ghost will work on them. The Holy Ghost will open up their eyes, and they can understand and believe the gospel if we'll simply give it properly. All right, folks, well, I hope this has been a help to you. God bless you is my prayer.